weird and I like it. That's the name of my talk. I like weird things. I like weird people. I am weird. Identifying, interpreting, and creating the surreal basically means that we're going to be looking at a lot of weird stuff. When you think about the surreal, one of the first kind of artists that comes to mind is Salvador Dali. He was one of the most famous surrealists. This is one of his most famous works called The Persistence of Memory. Surrealism was an art movement mainly in the 1920s and 30s, drawing on dreamlike states and surreal images mainly. Like I said, this is one of his most famous works. The melting clocks apparently are melting camembert in the Spanish heat. The hills, the craggy ranges is where he grew up, and this weird looking fella here is apparently a self-portrait of the artist himself. The surreal is obviously more than just an art movement. It's a feeling, emotions, anything that's a bit strange to the norm, I guess, to your own reality. I wanted to talk about my own art as well, some of the more surreal things I've done over the years. And one of the most surrealist part of my life was back in 2002. So I just finished uni. I got a first degree honours in fine art from Nottingham Trent for, in part, collecting my bogies and moulding them into a ball in an egg cup. That in itself is another surreal story. But I was living with some young professionals and other artists in Nottingham, along with Spencer, who's here, who was a photographer, and everyone else was at work. We didn't have jobs. We were pretty bored. We sat around the house, drinking tea, playing Tony Hawk Pro Skater on the Xbox, and watching Bob Ross reruns. Bob Ross, it's again surreal watching him talk about his paintings. Spencer was into yoga. I gave it a go because I was so bored. We were at home by ourselves. We decided to spice it up a little bit by kind of like doing some movements around the house. Inspired by Tony Hawk, we started giving them names. This is the elevated dog stretch. And this was before the days of kind of social media, so we took manual photographs and we scanned them, and then we'd send them to our flatmates during the day to be like, look what we're up to. You're at work, this is what we're doing. And they started to ask for more, and they showed their friends, and then we got random emails from people saying, hey, can you send us some more photos? So we decided to build a website, and you know, before the days of social media and easy website creation, this was quite a mission to do. And we got our first kind of publicity in an English national newspaper, and we got 6,000 visits to our site in one morning, but that crashed the server because, you know, it was back in 2002. But from then on, it spiraled, and basically for a year, I was on the dole, but I was getting paid to climb around houses. Various things we ended up doing. Someone came to us from Random House and said, do you want to write a book? You know, pay us to write this book. We're like, I don't know how to write a book, but yeah, give us the money, we'll do it. We went on a reality TV show. We were talked about in Neighbours. We flew to Switzerland for a house gymnastics day. Yeah, it was a bizarre time in my life. Oh, we also got asked to film a pilot for a TV show. One of the strangest ones was this one, where a Korean TV crew flew over from Korea to London to film us for a day, and then it was part of, like, I don't know what it was, like some kind of talk show or something. But I'll play you a little bit because we've got subtitles and stuff. That's young me. Right, all of this is so staged. This is someone's random house that we were just given to do it in. Oh, look, where are you? Yeah, you can find lots of house gym videos out there. Talking about filmmaking, there's lots of... Oh, by the way, so this whole talk is based around the surrealist technique of stream of consciousness. So I'm going to be jumping between things, but there's always some kind of like hidden thread there that connects the two, so it's not just all weird. So this is obviously Pan's Labyrinth from Guillermo del Toro. Aidan, is that right? I got it right? I practiced that last night. I just can't pronounce things. I mean, he's obviously famous for Pan's Labyrinth and The Shape of Water. There's other surrealist filmmakers like Tim Burton, anything by David Lynch. Andy Warhol, famous artist, he made a video once of him just eating a cheeseburger. It was called Andy Eats a Burger, very, very surreal. Then you've got more like Terry Gilliam from Monty Python, who also did the illustrations for them. And from here, I was looking up kind of contemporary kind of surreal animation and came across Syriac. I don't know if anyone knows this guy. How long's this video? Oh yeah, we can watch this. I'll skip it a little bit. Yeah, that goes on and on. There's lots of videos by him. And on to one of my favorite films, for all the wrong reasons. I don't know if anyone's seen The Room here. It is a surreal experience. I'll just run through for anyone that's not seen it. Tommy Wiseau, terrible actor, failing in Hollywood, decides that he's going to write, star, direct in his own film. He pays for everything, so instead of hiring the cameras, he like pays for all of the equipment. No one knows where he's from, how old he is, where he got his money from. It was supposed to be a drama, but it's now billed as a black comedy. I'm just gonna have to play some of it for you because it is really a thing of beauty. I mean, even from that logo right there, there's lots of shots like this as well, and this music plays through the entire film. Ah, yes, it starts with my favourite scene. So this scene's just in the middle of the film. Just so you know, obviously he's going to buy flowers.
Hi. Can I help you? Yeah, can I have a dozen red roses, please? Oh, hi, Johnny. I didn't know it was you.
How did you not recognise him? Look at him!
How much is it? It's going to be $18. Go, keep the change.
Like, what's going on? And that's it. What was the point in that scene?
She was sitting, drinking her coffee.
Oh, he tells the best stories.
So beautiful. And I say hi to her. That's how we met.
All right, here's a classic.
I did not hit her. It's not true. It's bullshit. I did not hit her. I did not. Hi, Mark.
How did he not see Mark? Okay, wait, there's one more brilliant one.
A few minutes, bitch. Strange these days. I used to know a girl. She had a dozen guys. One of them found out about it, beat her up so bad she ended up in a hospital on Guerrero Street.
Why is he laughing at that story?
You're lying. I never hit you. You are tearing me apart, Lisa.
Okay, there we go. It still plays at the Roxy every month, if you want to see it. Around the time that I discovered the room, I bought my second car on Trade Me. It was about $2,000. It was a Nissan Primera. And the first time we took it up, we went to Hastings. I had my 1-year-old child, my pregnant wife, and my mother-in-law. 2 hours into the trip, I'd killed a kitten. That was the start of the horrific journey of this car. We got halfway, the head gasket blew on the car, we had to get towed the rest of the way. It was $2,500 for a new engine, so we'd already spent $2,000 on the car. Broke down on the way back from Hastings as well, kept breaking down. I'm like, I'm screwed. Like, I'm 4.5K down and I don't have a car. And I was looking around forums like, you know, what can you do if you've been sold a car that actually just breaks straight away? Tried to take the guy to court, lost out on a technicality. And I was like, what do I do? And there was nothing I wanted to do more than to destroy this car. And it reminded me of being a kid in England. I don't know if it's the same over here, but they used to have like carnivals and fairs and you could pay $5 and they give you a hammer and you just smash a car up for like 5 minutes. So it's a health and safety hazard now, but at the time, that was one of my favorite things. So I'm like, okay, how can I get some money? So I went to a contemporary art patron who was into experimental stuff. I'm like, look, if you give me $2,500 for a car, I'm gonna put on this event, and so I'll get a new car and I'll put on this event for free and people can come and let's just destroy this car. So I did, and said, like, anyone that feels anger towards anything, you know, come have a cathartic release. Let's just smash up my car. So we did. So basically you could sign up and you got 60 seconds. You could bring your own weapons. I didn't want to take all the good stuff. There was also spray paint. That's my wife being very dainty. Oh yeah, some big hits from this guy. You can see it getting gradually worse. Oh, this guy came and he threw his old Mac into the car. Who else we got? Oh yeah, this guy was enjoying it. He must have been exhausted. Look, he even turned it around. Oh, and this is the aftermath. There was an art critic who came and described it as a revenge fantasy in a post-apocalyptic landscape. So the irony is that I had Macaulay Metals who said they'd come and take the car away for free. And then a month later, they called me up and said, we're going to give you $200 because we managed to sell the metal from your car. So that was an absolute bonus. All right, so stream of consciousness. People at the time were saying that, in terms of art, you could see that as a ready-made. So I've taken something that already exists and done something with it, which is something that was first thought about by Marcel Duchamp over 100 years ago. I'm going to speed up a little bit because I know we've not got much time, so I'm going to run through the story if you don't know it. He is often referred to as like the father of conceptual art. Back in 1917, there was an exhibition where you could submit anything, apparently, if you paid a fee, and they would exhibit it. And he was interested in the idea of taking something that had a functional purpose. He turned it upside down, presented it in the gallery, and he said, he was basically saying, now look at this. Can you now appreciate this in terms of form and context as opposed to what function it serves? And it was rejected at the time, even though he paid the fee, and he was on the board, he resigned at that time. But it was basically the start of ready-mades, and I don't know if it was the birth of surrealism, but it was definitely the birth of conceptual art. If you jump forward to the 90s, this is Sarah Lucas. She was one of the YBAs, the Young British Artists. They drew heavily upon surrealism and conceptual art. And this is obviously, Bucket Fanny, Melons, it's two people lying in a bed. But they were very much into shock art, as was Damien Hirst, probably one of the most famous living British artists. This has got a really long title, but basically what he was saying is he's presenting this thing that is in a pose. It's dead, but it's being kept alive by the formaldehyde. And he was into the big topics like life, death, love. And there's a quote about this where he just basically said that death is all around us and it's inevitable, and that is one of the most scary things. In terms of the surreal, bereavement is a very surreal feeling, the loss of something you love. Felix Gonzalez-Torres in 1991, he was a gay male artist, and his partner died of an AIDS-related disease. And he took this photo of their unmade bed. It's quite beautiful because obviously it's very subtle, but it's showing the marks in the pillow. It's like an absence of someone, and he displayed this as a huge billboard in Manhattan, which is surreal in itself, seeing something so banal where everything else is just talking about advertising and marketing. I'll quickly show you this. This is a piece called Schrodinger's Cat in the Hat. Schrodinger had a thought experiment, Erwin Schrodinger. Again, sorry if you already know this, but he said if you put a healthy cat, inside a box with some radioactive material that has a 50% chance of killing the cat, and the box is closed, there is a 50% chance that the cat is alive or dead. And so he said that until you open the box, the cat is both alive and dead, because it's our perception of the cat that defines whether it's alive. At the time, I was reading a lot of Dr. Seuss to my kids. I was going to parties where Zappo the musician was performing, and so I came up with this very surreal, dark version of a magic show.
Abracadabra. Abracadabra.
So this goes on. I did enough loops so that you would never know what was coming next. On to more recent work of mine, talking again about perception of something. These paintings are basically dot to dots without any predefined answer. The idea being that, as I spoke about before, it's the viewer themselves that brings the meaning to the work. And I'm interested in the creation of meaning and value of something. So when you're presented with something so minimal, you might see it and not see anything at all, whereas someone else might see something that reminds them of a past experience, and to them, it's a really meaningful piece of work, but to you it might not be at all. And as I was making these, my girls, I've got 3 little girls, one of them, unbeknown to me, had been copying them, trying to make her own on my phone. And I discovered this, and this was an article in Art News about artists with children. But yeah, so she'd been trying to copy what I was doing. And then when I spoke to my elder girl and said, do you want to give it a go? She was paralyzed with fear. She was like, well, where do I put the first mark? Someone doesn't like it, how do I know it's right? And it's just funny how when you're young, you create these fantastical drawings and you have no limits. And then as soon as you learn how to present reality and the kind of weight that we put on skill in art, you kind of move away from all that, and it's very difficult to do something strange. I'm always telling my girls, you only fail at something if you don't learn. If you don't fail, you don't grow. And this is a famous quote by Samuel Beckett. So these are some quotes from a couple of books that are relevant. The first one's from Art and Fear. It could be Creativity and Fear, because when you read this book, it's very short. It's like 70 pages, but if you're into creating, it feels like it's talking to you no matter what you're doing. And it's very true. You can't think about what other people are going to think about your work. And uncertainty is very uncomfortable, but it means that you're probably doing something new. The other one is The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. It sounds like a hard-out book, but it's not as rude or brutal as it actually sounds. It's talking about how to pay attention to things that are actually worthwhile in life. And this here about the existential crisis, we have so much stuff, we just don't know what to do anymore. Which leads me, and I think I'm all right, don't worry, I'm not going too far at a time. There was a guy called Albert Camus, a philosopher, and he wrote about the myth of Sisyphus, which was basically a Greek character who he had defied the gods. I can't remember exactly, I think he'd captured death, he captured death so no one had to die, but they punished him, and they said that forever you have to roll a boulder up to the top of a hill just to see it fall down and have to push it all the way back up again. And it's quite a metaphor for life sometimes when you're stuck in something that you don't want to do. You're doing the same thing every day. But Albert Camus said that we have to imagine Sisyphus as being happy, because otherwise how can you go on living? And I made this video which kind of sums it up in a very bizarre way. So it's like a happy, sweaty emoji cushion that is just forever goes around. But look at the smile on his face. So, in summary, I'm going to finish with Dali because I started with him. Surreal things are weird. Weird things can be good. Have the courage to be weird. And that's it.